39,000 solar installs last year in Arizona alone. Solar is big and growing, and so are some of the problems customers are complaining about. How do you find a good installer? That's today's Joe Knows Better podcast. I'm Joe Ducey. This is Joy Seitz, owner of American Solar and Roofing. Thanks for being here, Joy.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
Joy is also an accredited business with the Better Business Bureau, and you've been in business for a long time here.
Yes, so we're established in 2001, so we're 23 years old. We're the original solar installer here in Arizona, so we were the first to put solar on a Phoenix home and a Scottsdale home and connect it to the grid.
Go back to that time. What were people thinking when there were these things on a roof? And were they big things on a roof? Were they big panels where now they're kind of micro?
Yeah.
What were they looking like?
Well, they looked about the same. The footprint was about the same, just the wattage was a lot lower.
Okay.
So same size approximately, just the wattage was lower. What were people thinking? They were thinking, well, they came out of the solar hot water world, right? So they understood the collectors. The White House had it, right? So it was solar, or NASA had it. So there was the technology there. So much like any technology, you had the early adopters who understood the technology and wanted to be a part of something that was new.
Was it this is going to get in the weeds here a little bit, but was there a concern about how it looked at the beginning, or was that just not you know what I'm saying? I mean, people are the first one to be like, what's that stuff on the roof over there?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think early adopters care about looks, right? If they did, many things, right? Like remember the cell phone and how it looked like a brick, but people carried it around.
Right.
So same thing, right?
Okay.
Early adopters love that type of stuff, and they just want to be a part of anything.
Okay. So you've seen a lot of changes in the industry over time. I guess let's go to today. What are you seeing in the industry right now? These are hopefully consumers listening who might be thinking about going solar. Do you have concerns for them about finding the right business? Are there people who should have solar and people who should not possibly have solar? Are those questions they need to ask themselves? I don't know where you want to begin here, but where do you see the industry right now?
Yes. The industry right now is pivoting. Again, in my time, and I think the solar, through our journey as American Solar and Roofing, what we've experienced is, as I feel like we're in the third iteration of solar. So we built it for about 10 years. We had extreme growth for about 10 years where it was really being pushed by the financing entity. So it's less about contracting and more about financing companies were growing.
Okay.
And so now where we're settling out is that the financing company's business model isn't working as well as it needs to be, specifically serving customers, just because of their aggressive growth tactics. And so now I believe the next 10 years is really about focusing on consumer protection and really helping the customers understand what they're putting on their roof. And so I'm proud to say that both of our leading utilities, both APS and SRP, have created a qualified solar installer program. It helps customers learn from a third party, how do you vet an installation?
How do they choose people? Do you have to go through a vetting process to be part of APS's?
Yes.
SPR?
Yeah, both SRP and APS have done a very, very regimented process to create the qualified program. Okay. And they use a third party. I believe it's the Electric League of Arizona.
Okay.
So they use them to vet everything out, but you have to provide all your sales documents. Leadership has to go through certification of it. You have to be truing up. Marketing always has to request permission to use their logos.
Okay.
And they're actively staying involved, as opposed to click, you're certified, and then just leave you alone. There is an active conversation with customers and with the installation, so that, like I said, they're actively staying involved in the qualification and making sure we're doing it right.
In my previous life, I was 18 years with ABC 15 doing consumer stuff, and we would get a lot of complaints growing about solar because the solar industry was growing. So wherever you see a lot of people, where there's a lot of business, there are going to be some complaints. Okay, first of all, we have to say there are a lot of good businesses out there, right? One of them's yours. They do the job well. They install solar well. You're kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
Are there not a lot of good businesses out there?
No, I don't. So again, if you look at the qualified list that currently exists with both utilities, I believe that no more than 10 solar installers have been able to achieve the objectives of where we believe as an industry and the utilities believe as an industry we need to be hitting. Wow. So if there's only 6 to 10 solar installation companies who look like mine that are serving the residential market, and you look at Yelp, you look at Google, on all the other installation companies, there's a big difference. And so it's like people want to say it's fine. There's just a handful. No, there's not just a handful right now. It's drastic. It's problematic.
All right. Wow. Because typically in industries you think, okay, there are going to be some bad apples and there are going to be a lot of good ones, and you want to get the good ones and not the bad ones, because you want to get stuck with the bruising and all. In this industry, you're saying that it's gotten to the point where, what's the reason for that? Is it a lack of regulation? Is it just a need for money? Is it a third-party sales that go on? What kind of things go on?
It's all of those things. So when you look at, there isn't a lack of regulation. There's actually a lot of regulation that both the National Solar Industry Association and even local would like to point out. Mm-hmm. The problem is that there's no, it's a carrot or a stick, right? So there's no penalties. There's nobody going after them. There's no, the Attorney General is not actively creating a carved out situation where there is a very intense specific call out to try to stop this conversation happening. Okay. So we have the policies, just not a stick to keep it at bay. Where it really came about is the financing. And then 1099 door knockers. So 1099 door knockers on an average system, they can make between $10,000 and $15,000.
1099 being what, the form or the what?
1099. They're not affiliated to any solar installer.
Okay.
So I W-2 all my sales staff. I have to background check all of that.
Right.
I do taxes. I pay workman's comp. Right. I pay.
So they're employees.
They're employees for me.
Okay.
The majority use 1099, and when you have a 1099 situation, you can't control what they say or do.
It's like a freelancer, that kind of.
Yeah. Like yesterday,
independent contractor.
Yeah. Yesterday they were maybe teachers, and then it goes into summer and they're door knocking and selling solar, right? Okay. Like anything can happen. And so that is the main stimuli, is there's so much money to be made on fraudulent claims, and when there's no oversight and no regulation, it just keeps going.
What are some common? Let's get it down to what consumers can even understand that's going on at their house.
Yes.
What are some situations that you're seeing that are problematic that are happening? Just specifics, like people knocking on the door and they talk. What people saying things that they shouldn't, maybe can't prove. Those kinds of things.
Again, all of it. You're on the right track. So people will knock on the door. They will, unfortunately, make claims of you're not going to have a utility bill. They'll make claims of you're going to be disconnected from the grid. You're going to save more. The utility is going to pay you back tenfold. Just lies will occur, right? And then the problem is...
So going back to that with the lies. So if somebody says to you and shows you, okay, next year with this solar, you're going to be paying $12.30 in January for your electricity. You're going to be paying $12.30 in February. You're going to be, and writes that down. Can anybody do that? Can anybody tell you how much you're going to be paying for electricity in the following year, month by month? So
per state statute, we have to provide a production guarantee. You can't really provide a savings. You can provide savings estimates, but what if I give you solar to, connect solar to your home, Joe, and you're like, okay, let's have parties, right? You open up the door and you turn on the air conditioning. Well, now your savings is going away. So by law, I have to say to you, this system is going to provide this many kilowatt hours every month for the next 20 years. And then you as a homeowner have to understand that you then have to keep that lifestyle have a conversation with that solar installer of, hey, I'm going to get an electric vehicle next month. Okay. Hey, I'm going to get a jacuzzi. Hey, my in-laws are moving in, right? That changes your journey of planning for solar.
So can this sometimes, because one of the main complaints I received was people who thought that the salesperson lied to them about how much they could save, and they were told they wouldn't have an electricity bill, or they were told whatever. Do you think first of all, if you think that's happening? Second, if it is it the salesperson's issue, or do you think there could be a consumer misunderstanding issue as well? That's one of the big issues. So I don't know, what legitimately they can say that consumers should be able to hear, and what could be something that's just outrageous and wrong.
So consumers, it is a very difficult thing, because when the door knock happens, they say you can save with solar, and let's kick the utility to the curb, right? So they immediately get bought into that. The problem is that if the salesperson does not have a desire, need, or even understanding of utilities and utility rate plans, they can't have a conversation of savings. Again, I can tell my customers, hey, based upon your consumer use, your usage for the last 18 months, if you don't plan on changing that, this will be your savings. Mm-hmm. I have 10,000 customers. I have return customers all the time who are like, everything you said, hit it, right? The problem is that if the customer doesn't understand what they're talking about and the salesperson has no desire to teach them, that is where the customer comes in and has massive problems.
Okay.
And so they do, again, going back to the utility websites, customers need to understand the questions that they need to ask. I mean, I joke, I'm like, even ChatGPT is going to give you better questions that you didn't even think about than now to be able to really get curious. But an aggressive salesperson is going to knock on your door. As soon as you let them in, they're not leaving until you sign that contract. Mm-hmm. And then it's very hard to figure out, how do I cancel it? Then they give you only 3 days to cancel it. Mm-hmm. How do you get your deposit back?
Because it's a home solicitation sale. So they do have 3 days in this case.
Yeah. Okay. But to be able to hunt them down and get the phone number, those people aren't calling you back.
What else should consumers do before? Okay, let's get into what consumers should do before they hire someone. I'm going to say, because I'm with the Better Business Bureau, let's look at reviews on the BBB.org site. Licensing, I don't know, specifically, if you would look at licensing, like what they're licensed to do.
Yep.
Go into that a little bit about what homework should be done.
Yes. So again, I'm not getting paid by the utilities, but I've done a lot of work with them. They've done a lot of good due diligence to teach homeowners. So definitely go onto your utilities website and look at that data. But definitely number one, go to the BBB and verify it. I even joke around and say, go to their office. Mm-hmm. If they don't have an office, I would be hard pressed not to buy from them. Okay. Because again, they're not committed to that quality. They're not committed to W-2. They're not committed to culture. They're not committed for the long run. Mm-hmm. And then number three, how old is your roof? That's another thing people don't think about. If your roof is over 10 years old and you're thinking about getting solar, partnering with somebody who understands how to attach the solar and to keep the longevity of the roof or re-roof that area before you go solar, very important, because solar panels can last 25 plus years. Again, I've been in business 23. The majority of the solar panels I installed in 2001 are still out there working. And so understanding that you want a 20, 30-year roof to put it on. Another thing you want to think about is how are you going to pay for it? A lot of folks don't understand that when they do a quick 30-second approval for loans, that they're actually paying anywhere between a 20 to 30% dealer fee. They don't know it because it's not in the print, but so they think they're getting a 2% loan, but in all actuality, they're paying a significant amount in the back end that the dealer, the installer, has to pay to the lender. Okay. Again, that's convoluted and complicated, but factually, 30% is going somewhere else that you're paying for. Okay. And get multiple quotes, and always stay educated. And if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. Okay. And get them out of your home and keep going.
That could be the intimidating part, I think, for people. If they're older, if they're single, possibly. Yes. They're in there, they let them in the house. That's the first mistake. Yeah, I always say when they come to the door and knock, they know more about you than you know about them.
100%.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Right.
So take their card. Bye-bye. I'm going to look you up online. We'll see what's going on.
And that's what the data would show. The data would show that the predatory behaviors of the solar door knockers is they are coming and preying on the elderly, and they're preying on non-English speaking. Okay. All right.
A couple things I think I've seen issues with. One, the tax rebates or whatever you're supposed to get. And I've seen people who, they were told that they're going to get these huge tax rebates. They don't pay taxes. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to get a rebate or they're not going to get whatever it is. Have you seen issues with that? And what should people expect when it comes to getting some rebate or money off their taxes or whatever it is?
Yeah, for sure. So if you buy it and you have taxable income, you do have that 30% tax credit, and you have the Arizona is of $1,000. You can do a carry forward on the federal. So if you only have a little bit of taxable, the first year, you can carry it forward for 5. If you lease it, you're not getting any of the tax credits. The financing entity will take that. Okay. And so you do have to have that taxable income. We always say talk to your CPA or understand how your taxes. It's very easy to file the taxes. It's like a checkbox, and you're like, this is how much I spent. So it's very easy to achieve the tax credit. You just have to understand your taxes and your liability to that.
Another issue was after these things were installed, and in cases I've seen where for some weird reason, the installation would happen, but then the connection wouldn't. For some reason, they have to come back out and go with the county and the utility, and they have to move a box, or I don't know all the details, and I'm sure you do know. But there's that, and so it takes months and months for some people to do it. Meanwhile, they've leased it, and the loan has begun.
Correct.
Because the loan company contacts the contractor and says, oh, they were installed. We're going to start this up. It's like, wait a second. I don't have it. It's not working for me. How can you go ahead and charge me when it's not working? Do you see an issue there where if they're charging that the loan company isn't talking to the consumer and doesn't start these things when they can actually get power? Have you seen that issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I pause because it is such a complicated conversation that we're having. And yes, that's absolutely happening. So much so that I talk to the CEOs of those lenders and those leasing companies to say, what are you doing? And the problem is, again, is that the lender, as they perceive it, is they are only there to provide the loans. Customer, you signed on that loan document. Up until recently, I think the lending companies are doing a third-party verification call.
Okay.
But again, the homeowner doesn't really understand what's going on, and they're still in love with the idea of what was sold to them. And we don't know what that person sold to them at the kitchen table. And so that's where the lending companies will fall in, is like, look, like you signed it, and then within 120 days, you're supposed to be turned on. The contractor could have lied to the lending companies and said that they've received permission to operate. They haven't. And so, yeah, I mean, it is, which is then where the customer is like, there's a person who possibly sold it to them. Then there's another person who possibly financed it for them. Yeah. And then there's another company that ends up installing it for them. So then the customer ends up in a situation where there's three parties who possibly have a 1-800 number, and they're all pointing fingers. And the end person, they don't have a clue what's going on. And so it puts them in a lurch. And I get those emails all of the time where I've been trying for 5 months to get this installed. I just had one come through last week, and they partnered with a lending company. I speak to that CEO often, and I said, hey, lender, can you help them with this? Because they were not sending anybody out to fix it, but she's paying the loan, but there's no production happening because the installer bankrupted and left her.
Okay, yeah, we've done some bankrupt stories. All right, I'll throw a softball. How is your company different than some of these others?
Our company is different specifically because we are, our purpose in our company is to affect revolutionary change through our employees, our customers, and our community. So I came out of the venture capital world. I saw the .com boom and bust. I knew it was going to be this was going to be happening years ago. So I positioned my company to really be protecting the customer and be, as I joke, be the canary in the coal mine and say, hey, don't do that. Hey, you need to watch out for this. Hey, investigate these people. And so just who we are. Our core values and our commitment to our community is why I am different. And then on top of that, I stay educated. On top of that, I serve on national SEIA boards. On top of that, I serve on the Phoenix Fire Department Advisory Board for prevention. So I am constantly having conversations with stakeholders and leaders to maintain the solar industry. As you pointed out, 38,000. I want that to maintain. I want to grow, but we don't want to grow on the backs of fraud. And I want solar to have a great name.
That'd be a great ending, but I do want to ask you again, let's go over some of the things before, because I think people are going to, if we can put them just in maybe, because we've gone over a lot of issues,
we have.
But if we can go concisely about, let's hit the major issues that if people are interested in solar, a couple things they need to think about first, and then maybe how they pick an installer.
Okay.
So what should they think about whether or not it works for them?
Okay, first they want to think about is, do they have a bill? Like if they have a bill, and utility prices are increasing, right? Rate increases are happening all the time. So if you have a bill, I even have snowbirds who can take advantage of solar. You design a solar system based upon how much you're consuming. It's not like I have to consume a significant amount to get solar. So if you want solar and you want to save money with solar, we can design, an credible solar installer will design a solar system specifically for how you consume energy and in today and in the future. So you first want to know, I want to do this. The second thing is like you mentioned, look at the BBB, look at who is accredited. The third thing would be go to your utilities website. If you're in a utility that doesn't have one, go to the APS or the SRP website and start looking at, the recommendations that they have and the contractors that they are recommending. But keep asking those questions, even to a reputable company like myself. Keep us on our toes. So then you want to look at, how are you paying for it? So if you're paying for it through a loan, you need to understand those terms and conditions. They'll take a picture of your ID and get approved in 30 seconds. Don't just go through that. Understand the documents you're signing. Have them printed out. Have them printed out in your native, tongue. And then on top of that, ask, get 2 or 3 quotes. Absolutely. And the more you interview people, the more you're going to understand. So as I said, get those questions written down just like you've done today, and stay focused on those questions and ask every single installer those same questions and see the different responses you get. And then again, you use your gut and don't sign when you don't feel like you're going to sign or you should sign. And last but not least, definitely understand your infrastructure. If you have an older roof, put that a priority before you go solar, because we want that solar system to be on for 20, 25 years before you have to re-roof.
Okay. Man, that's great. Anything else you want to add?
No, I just appreciate this conversation. I've been having it with, far and wide. So anytime I can talk to a customer and have a listener understand that journey, I'm appreciative.
Yeah, that's great. I know you see some changes coming.
Yeah.
Some, I guess, are good. Some you probably don't agree with. But I think it's important to point out that there are some companies out there that you say are decent, yours being one of them.
Yes.
And then other companies that they should avoid. And maybe the majority.
In my opinion, at this point, it's the majority.
Okay.
And it's a sad reality. It's not what I wanted as the original solar installer in Arizona, but it is where we're at right now until we flush out. The industry believes about 2025, mid-2025 to 2026, we'll see a levelization and a kind of a normalization of the solar industry again.
All right. Joy Seitz, owner of American Solar and Roofing, the first solar installer in Phoenix?
In Arizona.
In Arizona. Mm-hmm. All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Before hiring, go to BBB.org, check reviews, and for accredited businesses that agree to operate ethically. And see all my podcasted videos, joeknowsbetter.bbbcommunity.org. I'm Joe Ducey with the Better Business Bureau, helping consumers and businesses get it right.